YouTube. Today in the Naughty Librarian, I am doing my August wrap-up. First off, I read Furyborn by Claire Legrand. So many of my booktube friends have been telling me to read this book. And I knew I would like it because I trust their opinions, but now I finally got around to reading it. And oh my gosh, you guys, oh my gosh, it's so good. Furyborn is basically the story of these two prophesized queens. There is the Blood Queen and the Sun Queen. And these two queens, their stories are being told 1,000 years apart. So we have Riel, who is 1,000 years in the past, and then we have Eliana, who is 1,000 years in the future. The Blood Queen is prophesized to destroy the world because she will open up the gate and unleash the angels. Basically, angels are bad guys in this book, and they want to destroy everything. The Sun Queen, however, is prophesized to save the world and will stop the invasion of the angels. So basically, we have two kind of very different girls in here, and it's both of their stories being told concurrently, even though they're 1,000 years apart. And I was so impressed by like how deep the characters got. Oh, it's a juicy character study. It's so good. It's so well written. Oh my gosh. Especially Riel, because in many ways you could say her character is an allegory for feminine rage. Then you have Eliana in the future, and she's also very feminist because she's really would do anything to protect her family, and she has a lot of inner strength, but she has inner strength as a woman. It's hard to explain what that means. It's just her mindset is very much feminine, but she's also like a kick-ass bounty hunter, so she has a typically masculine profession, but her thought process is very feminine, and it shows a lot of inner strength, that well of inner strength rather than just brute force. So both of them are so good. It's so juicy, guys. Juicy character study, and it's fantasy, and the dudes in this book are so swoony. Anyone who has read this book, when I say chapter 41, you already know what I'm talking about. But if you don't know, chapter 41 has a pretty explicit sex scene in it, which is okay. I mean, it's YA, but YA can have sex in it. And I really appreciated the scene, mainly because it's between Riel and Audric. Whatever. That's not really a spoiler. It's obvious they're gonna get together. Besides Audric being totally swoony, it's also showing sexual agency by Riel, because she's very much expresses her desires, and Audric listens to them. There's clear consent. It's just all around a great scene. The other swoony dude is this guy named Simon, and I'm kind of obsessed with Simon. I recommend this 1,000,000%. So good. Oh, so good. Claire Legrand, where have you been my whole life? Holy smokes. Coming in at 4 stars, I have A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. If I was to describe this book in particular, I would call it stylish AF. It is so stylistically wonderful. It's a rich fantasy landscape. It follows this guy named Kel, and he's kind of like a sorcerer a bit, and he can travel through these parallel Londons. There's 4 parallel dimensions, and he can travel through 3 of them. White London, Red London, and Grey London. There's another London called Black London, but it fell. No one goes to Black London. It's dead now. He runs into intrepid street urchin Lila Bard, and they team up and they go on this wild adventure to get rid of this little piece of Black London that's super evil. That's a good description of the book. And this is a me thing. Totally a me problem. And it happens a lot with V.E. Schwab books in general. It falls victim to this thing that I call the fairy tale veil. Essentially, there's this veil that disconnects me from the characters. Like Kel and Lila. I have so many adjectives I could use to describe them both. I know who they are in an abstract sense, but do I know really how they think about things? Do I really get deep into their persona? Do they really scratch beneath the surface of who they are in the story? Not so much. I have that disconnect from the characters. It's kind of like a celebrity, I could know a lot of facts about Ryan Reynolds, but it doesn't mean I actually know who he is as a person, you know what I mean? And it's kind of like that with her characters, and I've experienced the same thing before with her, so I think it just might be her writing style and my reading style don't mesh completely, but I do recognize it's an amazing, really rich fantasy world, and it's like really stylish, and I get why it's so popular. It's really well written. It just has that fairy tale veil where like I have a disconnect from it, so it's my problem, not anyone else's apparently, but I still recommend. It's very good. It's just like me as a reader, the things I pick up on in particular aren't necessarily the things that she focuses on in particular, so it's just like a difference of opinion. Coming in at 4 stars, I have The Rose and the Dagger by Renee Ahdieh. It hurts me to say this, but like, it really wasn't as good as Wrath in the Dawn. Like, I'll be honest, it really wasn't as good. It kind of forgot a lot of the je ne sais quoi that made Wrath in the Dawn so special and like amazing. Because this one it just wasn't as amazing. Like, you know? I think it's mainly because the things that I thought the book was going to be about based on book 1 weren't actually what this book was about. If you've read Wrath in the Dawn, basically it is 1001 Nights reimagining, and you have Shahrazad and you have the Emperor, Khalid, and he's been murdering his wives for breakfast every day. And the whole point of Wrath in the Dawn was that they have to break the curse so he doesn't have to keep killing his wives. And so you think Rose and the Dagger is going to be about them breaking that curse. And it's kind of not. That was the problem for me. Because, sorry, it's not really a spoiler. Like, obviously they're going to break the curse. So they break it. But it was, like, so not a big deal. Like, it was, like, 2 pages long and really anticlimactic. Like, it was, like, that was all they needed to do to break the curse. What? We had, like, so many girls got murdered, and he just had to do this one little thing, and it's done. Like, that was, like, a dick move. Basically, Rose and the Dagger is more, like, political intrigue and someone trying to make a power play to, like, conquer the nation and, like, dethrone Khalid. So it's not the book I was expecting to get, maybe. So I don't know if there's a problem with my opinion or not, but from what I have heard, a lot of people share my opinion that Rose and the Dagger just wasn't quite as good as Wrath in the Dawn, but it does have its moments. It's not bad. It's not bad by any means. I mean, there's a lot of magic carpet time in this. They ride the shit out of a magic carpet, which I was like waiting for them to do all of Wrath in the Dawn, and they didn't. So I was like thoroughly impressed with how much time they rode a magic carpet. So there's that. Coming in at 5 stars, I also read Lord of Shadows by Cassandra Clare. This is a continuation on from Lady Midnight, and it basically picks up right where Lady Midnight left off. And, this one was like, it kicked me in the emotional balls. It took me a long time to recover from the ending of this. It's just like, kick a character while they're down, why don't you? Ooh, good gracious. It's driving me to drink. But considering it kicked me in my metaphorical balls, you can say that I'm very attached to it, and it's very good because it's totally sucked me in. I love these characters. I particularly really love Julian. He is bae. I love him, but I'm also like a little scared of him, so I don't know what that says about me, but he's very interesting. Prediction time. If you haven't read the series, this won't matter to you at all. If you have read the series, please comment down below with your predictions as well. Julian. He is basically so Slytherin, but not one of those like benign Slytherin, like Slughorn, where they're just like, oh, I'm ambitious and that's why I'm a Slytherin. No. Julian is like Machiavellian in his schemes. If he wasn't the hero of the story, he could very well be the villain of the story. He is ruthless. And I feel like, considering the ending of this and how tragic it was, I feel like he's about to get way ruthless. Like, I think, perhaps, in Queen of Air and Darkness, the finale, I have a bad feeling that Julian might be the villain. I'm just gonna say it, I think he might turn into a villain. Oh my gosh. And I had been waiting so long to film this wrap-up, just so I could say that out loud because I want to talk to people about it, but I don't know who to talk to about it because I don't know anyone else who's read this that like I speak to on a regular basis. So hello YouTube, please comment down below and tell me what you think about Julian because I have a bad feeling he's going to be the villain in Queen of Air and Darkness. At least for like a little bit, because think about it, there's a Parabatai curse, and then like that tragedy happens, and he's very ruthless, and you combine all of it, and he's a guy who is content watching the world burn. Like, tell me he's not. So anyway, I love this, it's very good, and I can't wait for the next book to come out. Oh my gosh, it's so good. Coming in at 4.5 stars, I have Reaper at the Gates by Saba Tahir. I was very scared to read this, because every time I heard someone say like, they just finished Reaper, they'd be like, I just finished Reaper. Like it hurt them. And I was like, oh gosh, it's gonna hurt. I think the people who are very hurt are the people who are very, very invested in Elias and Laia being a couple. And don't get me wrong, I was totally rooting for them like this whole time too, but I'm not as invested in that part of the story as I am with Helen's story. Because it has three perspectives. It's Helen, Laia, and Elias. And Helen Aquila, the girl in the middle right here with the silver face, she is like one of my all-time favorite heroines of anything. Like, I love her that much. Like, I will fight you. Like, if you tell me she's not cool, like, I will fight you. Helen Aquila, I love her storyline so much. And honestly, I think it's some of the best writing in the whole series is when she's writing from Helen's perspective. Like, she gets real dark, but like dark and beautiful in a way, because like, ugh, I just have like a million boners for her. Like, I can't even like explain how much I love her. There was this quote I really liked and I wrote it down, so I'm just gonna read it. I draw on every last bit of strength I have. I am a thing from the barbarian's nightmares, a silver-faced, blood-drenched demon of the hells, and I will not let them pass. Like, I get chills, it's such a good line! Oh my gosh, Helen Aquila. So much love, so much. I cannot wait for the finale. Like, if I'm being quite honest, why this didn't get a full 5 stars for me is that it's rather bridgy. It's kind of a bridgy novel. It's obviously linking the whole first act, which is the first 2 books, to the conclusion. It's obviously filling in gaps. But a lot of shit goes down in here. There's a lot of like bombshell revelations and like there's a lot of really cool stuff, but I was primarily focused on the Helen chapters because those are like beautiful. Like, they're some of the best well-written things I've ever read. Laia and Elias, like, I'm getting a little burnt out on because they're just kind of whiny, like a lot. Like, girl, we get it. And Helen doesn't spend a lot of time whining. I can't like just keep telling you about my girl crush on her this whole review, but just trust me, it's an excellent addition to the series. Doesn't really have any fall off in quality except for that it's kind of bridgy, but other than that, I'm like so down. It's like only whet my appetite even more for the finale, so I can't wait for the last book of the series. After I read those books, I was feeling pretty burnt out in fantasy. I kept thinking about how much I really, really liked that book I read by Tessa Dare that I read like in the beginning of the month for Booktubeathon. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna try out one more of her books and see if magic strikes twice. And it did strike twice. So I read 6 of her books. And it's the weirdest thing because I'm so not into historical romance, but like I'm into these ones. I'm into these historical romances because they are so funny and all of them have like a very modern kind of rom-com feel, because I feel like any of these stories, you can change some minor details and like set them in the present using the same exact story and characters, just set it in the present, and it would still be a funny romantic comedy. You know what I mean? First off, I have Romancing the Duke. This is a story of Izzy and Ransom, and essentially Izzy inherits a castle, so she goes there. Turns out there's this duke who already lives in this castle, and his name is Ransom, and he's blind. And Izzy essentially, her dad was like the J.K. Rowling of that time period, and Izzy is like if Harry Potter was a real person. So there's all these fans of the books who kind of follow her around and they like LARP, and it's so funny, and it has LARPing in it, like it has cosplay and LARPing, so like Again, very modern feeling. And I just love these characters together. I have like such a soft spot for like a grouch. I don't know why I like grouchy dudes. But he's like blind and he's grouchy, but then he likes her and they're nice, and like, oh, I love it so much. It was so adorable. The next book of the series was Say Yes to the Marquess. This is the story of Cleo and Rafe, and Cleo essentially has been waiting 8 years for this guy Pierce to come home from abroad and marry her. She has been engaged to him for 8 years and he's like never shown up to marry her. But then his brother Rafe's around and she's like, oh, I kind of like you. And he's like, well, I like you too, but I can't like do you. You're my brother's like fiance. And then like he totally does her anyway. And you know, you throw in like a grumpy old bulldog and her starting in her own brewery in this castle she also inherited. And it's just like comedy of errors and also very adorable. I did like other books of this series better than this one, but I still did like this one. Next up in the series, I have When a Scot Ties the Knot. So basically, this one took all of the adorable historical rom-com love I had and threw dudes in kilts in it. I didn't know how much I was gonna like kilts. This one has like rom-com gold premise. It's about this girl named Maddie, and she's a very awkward like teenager, and she's like a debutante. She's about to have her season where she's displayed and like, oh, I'm ready for marriage. But she like very much was not ready for marriage. So she's like, I have a boyfriend. He's Scottish, that's why you haven't met him. He's in Scotland, that's why you haven't met him. Of course, you know? So, and she even writes letters to him. She's like, Dear Captain Mackenzie, and she like mails them and assumes they're just getting thrown away somewhere because there's no real Captain Mackenzie in the army. Lo and behold, there was a Captain Logan Mackenzie, and all the letters actually ended up getting to him. So, like 8, 9 years later, come knocking at her door, Captain Mackenzie saying, oh, hi, I'm here to marry you. And she's like, buh? That is such an excellent premise. And it's a bunch of dudes in kilts. Like, what is not to like about this? Next up in the series, I have Do You Want to Start a Scandal? And this name I mentioned earlier, Pierce from Say Yes to the Marquess, he comes back. Pierce is a, Regency era gentleman spy. And then you have Charlotte, who's kind of a fresh-faced young woman who is actively trying not to get married, and he's like a Marquess, so she knows like her like conniving mom is gonna end up throwing her at him, and she's like, I'm here to save you, you don't have to marry me. It's like a big mystery, this story, because she's talking to him in this room, and then some other people are coming, so they hide in an alcove, and the people who come in the room totally bang each other, so they're hiding in an alcove while these people are having very loud sex, and then they leave the room. And then everyone thinks it was them having sex. And they're like, no, 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 no. So it's Charlotte trying to figure out who are the copulating couple. So, like, she won't have her, like, name besmirched. And she won't have to marry Pierce because everyone thinks they already did it. So it's kind of like a grown-up Nancy Drew and James Bond, like, bang each other. If that doesn't sell you on it, I don't know what will. So, all of those books were part of the Castles Ever After series, and that kind of concluded the series. So I moved on to her other series called Spindle Cove. The first book in that series is called A Night to Surrender. This is Bram and Susanna. This is the only one I didn't give 5 stars to. I gave it 4 stars. Mainly because Bram is quite problematic. He's just super sexist. A lot. Like, he wants Susanna to be subservient a lot of the time, and he says some like stupid shit, and you're just like, boy, no. But at the same time, he's also very adamant about the fact that he would never strike a woman and he would never force himself on a woman. He's very protective of women in particular, and he's super into clear consent. Like when he and Susanna are like getting into it, like he asks several times throughout the encounter if she's okay with what they're doing, and if she doesn't want to do anything, he'll stop. And like he's very into clear consent. So like he has all of these things that are really great about him, and then he opens his dumb mouth and you're like, you ruined it. By the end of the book, I did like him a bit, but it's just like, I like you a lot more if you just don't open your mouth. The last book I read this month was A Week to Be Wicked. This one might be my favorite. It is kind of like a buddy road trip comedy. It follows Minerva, who's kind of like a bookish geologist, and Colin, who's a viscount, and he's just like a rake with a heart of gold. He's banged everybody, but he's, you know, he tries to be nice to people. He's just very bad at it. Like, you have like the feels for him. He's basically like if Ferris Bueller was a Regency romantic hero. That's him to like a T. And essentially, she's like, I want to present at this like geology symposium, but I need an escort. Let's just tell everyone we're eloping. And, you know, when we get back, we'll just say it didn't work out. Like, don't worry about it. Just come with me to Scotland. And he's just like, no. And she's like, yes, you will. And he's like, fine. And they go to Scotland, and they have the road trip from hell. But the thing I liked in particular about this book so much is that it wasn't just two people falling in love. It was two people falling in like, because I feel at the end of this book, like Colin and Minerva are actually like best friends, as well as lovers, and they do get married and everything. So it's like, it was like the best kind of romances, because I like to see people fall in like as well as fall in love. That is like a subtle distinction, and I really like that about this book in particular. It's also laugh out loud funny. They get into the weirdest circumstances during this trip. So good. Whew, binge reading. I went crazy with Fertessa Dare. I've read like 6 of her books. And there's a lot more of her books to read, so I feel like the binge isn't over. It's gonna continue. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these books, which one's your favorites and least favorites. Let me know what you think about Julian, because like I'm dying to talk to people about him. Please comment down below. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like, and if you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe. And I'll see you guys soon. Bye! Camera's too far away.